Ladies and gentlemen, the questions you've all been asking are now being answered. Welcome to another edition of It's All About Who You Know, the podcast where influential people talk big topics in sports, faith, and more. Your host is a former Oregon State wrestler. He has a 4.9 star Uber rating and is currently undefeated in his MMA career. Here is Christian Robertson.
Hey, what is going on, guys? First of all, I want to thank you all for being here. Gosh, it's been a crazy week just getting to California, being quarantined in that situation. My dad, just getting back from the hospital from coronavirus. The last week's been crazy. I did that 1 mile swim, and then yesterday I did the 1 mile buddy carry with my brother without dropping him. And then, it's been crazy. Today, I was working out today, and it was just like 3 sets of upper body, like something real light, just with the workout plan I'm doing. And I was like, okay, it's a good plan. And I get out there, and I'm like, you know what I feel like doing? I feel like squatting heavy today. Now, so I haven't squatted more than 300 pounds in the last year, maybe over a year. I have not put over 300 pounds on the bar. I've done bands a little bit and stuff, but I haven't done more than 300 pounds. I've torn, something in my knee. I've torn my hip labrum. I've had just injury and everything. So I've been advised not to really do squats a lot. But today I was like, you know what? Screw it. Let's go for it. And so I just got done with a fast. I've been doing, I did the mile carry uphill yesterday. So just crazy stuff. And I get up to, I do 315 for 5, relatively easy. And I was like, shoot, let's just put 405 on the bar. And put 405 on the bar, got it for 5. And I was like, dang. My max ever was like 3 years ago at 425 for 5. And so, so just crazy stuff, making a lot of gains. This quarantine has been, as far as physical fitness, been very good to me. I know it's not the same for other people, but just been able to be really resourceful. It's been great. Before we get into today's guest, and I'll give some of his accolades here in a second, but I would appreciate it, guys. This is one of my most intelligent podcasts I've done. This one's going to be a lot of information, just because of the guest. It's not so much sport or entertainment, but it's more information based. And there's some banter, back and forth. Conor, our guest, is actually a friend of mine, so we talk back and forth, maybe a little bit of philosophy, a little bit of mindset. You're going to hear a little bit about how I think. Because Conor and I are friends, there was a dialogue back and forth, not so much me asking questions. And it was good. It was great. It lasted an hour and 15 minutes, and, the whole thing went really well. So I really enjoyed it. But let's get into the guest. Actually, before we get into the guest, I would just ask, if you guys enjoy this podcast, if you like it, please go leave a review, give it a 5-star review. And if you really feel like it, or a 5-star rating. And if you really feel like it, leave a review. Also, make sure you subscribe so you're notified every time I get in or get a podcast going. And then I also have a YouTube channel called Christian Robertson, where I'll be doing a lot of the things that I'm talking about. So the 1 mile buddy carry, the 1 mile swim, some of the crazy workouts are all on my YouTube channel. Some of them are on my Instagram, but the more in-depth vlogs are on my YouTube channel. That's Christian Robertson. You can go check that out. My Instagram is Barbell Robertson. But if you like this podcast, guys, all I ask from you is, if you get something out of it, just share it with one person. Just shoot them a text, send them the link, put it on your Instagram, whatever. If you do put it on your Instagram, make sure you tag me, so I can give you guys some recognitions. Maybe I'll start doing some shout outs or something once we get to a certain amount of listeners. But yeah, and I think you're going to get a lot out of this. This is a great podcast today that Conor and I get into, just talking about, proper steps to be taking during quarantine, proper mindset, certain things like that. Conor Harris, guys, he is a certified strength and conditioning specialist, performance specialist, personal trainer, and corrective exercise specialist. More importantly than that, Conor and I are actually friends. He is, I don't know if it's more important to him. It's more important to me. But him and we interned together for a couple terms at the Sports Performance Center at Oregon State. Conor has worked with numerous Division I athletes, numerous professional athletes, and we talk about that a little bit. He's worked with a lot of all-stars within the sports world. He's just all around great guy. His social media has been blowing up. He's got almost 8,000 followers, and he's only had a social media account, Instagram account, for like a year and a half, I think he said. So his information is just blowing up like crazy. Very valuable stuff. So I would encourage you guys to go check that out. And he tags it somewhere, and I'll put a link for it in the description below. But yeah, Conor is a great friend of mine, great buddy, and I saw him doing a workout a couple months ago, and I shot him a text and I said, "Hey man, I want you to be my personal trainer when I move up to Portland and start fighting." And so he's my personal trainer. But yeah, guys, without further ado, I know normally Mondays are for me and Gus, but our schedules didn't work out this week, so this is going to be the Monday podcast. So without further ado, guys, Conor Harris.
Hey.
What's going on, buddy?
Hey, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Good, man. My back is just tight from sitting all day. Oh, gosh.
Oh, I heard that one. That sounded nice.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's just like in the spot where you need it, you know?
Oh, yeah. That's the best. When you pop it and you're just like, oh, I did it.
Yeah, it's like ecstasy, man. Just like, pure euphoria.
I don't know anything about ecstasy, but I'm sure you're quite the confidant with all that.
Unfortunately not. Maybe one day.
Unfortunately. How you been, man? What have you been sitting down doing? Just doing podcasts and stuff?
Yeah, bro. I've been just recording so much stuff. I did a conference thing today. I've been calling, like I have online clients, so that keeps me going. But for the most part, man, like it's nice to be busy with stuff, but at the same time, just to be like in this room all the time is just like, it gets old without being able to go and like train people in person or like just fucking, sorry for swearing.
Oh, you're good.
Just like, being outside with friends,
Yeah. It's definitely a weird time, but dude, first of all, I want to say like your stuff was blowing up before like all this started. So has it continued? I haven't looked at your Instagram lately, but I'm sure it just continues to go like, cause I remember when you were still at Oregon State, it was at like 2,000 maybe. And then now it's like close to 8, right?
Yeah. I actually didn't even start it until like a year and some change ago.
Oh shoot. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm mistaken.
Yeah. So like it's really new, but I mean, it's going well. It's a funnel, right? Like it's just the whole point. The only reason I have it is so I can, put out, free information so people hopefully are attracted to working with me and buying the things I put out. It's just a funnel. That's really all it is. But it's also a medium to connect with people and build a network too. So it's really good for that. Sure. But at the same time, it gets to the point where it's like, wow, I spent 6 hours on social media today. I need to like calm down. I need to chill,
Yeah. No, I feel it. I've been hitting it crazy too. I mean, I'm nowhere near where you're at yet, but just with like all the content and stuff I'm putting out and the videos, and it's crazy. It's like, it's almost more stressful now that we don't have responsibilities, because we're still like, I don't, like people are like, bro, you got to watch this show. It's like, or like, you got to do this. And I'm like, dude, I'm so busy. Like I can't, what are you talking about? Like, how do you have time on your hands? Like, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's the burden of being a content creator. It doesn't really go away,
How's it going with your stuff, by the way?
It's going good. I mean, it's kind of frustrating.
Your production value looks higher.
Yeah, it's getting better. I mean, that's the thing is like, I started and I didn't start off with any type of platform. I didn't start off with any type of skills in media or, anything like that. So I've just been last year like learning everything on the fly, watching videos and, figuring out how to edit. And, I obviously I feel like I could be doing a lot better. I had like somebody come along and be like, hey, we want you to, start a YouTube channel. We'll take care of all the production and everything like that. I'm like, we just want you to be, the content provider. Be like, oh, sweet. Yeah. But knowing how to do that stuff on my own and learning it and understanding it, has been awesome. Like I just did my brother's, the like D1 coaches and stuff. They want to see like videos and everything. And I just did like a little highlight clip for my bro. like of workouts
What do
and
you
stuff
use?
like.
Do you use Adobe Premiere?
No, I'm still doing iMovie. I'm about to upgrade from. Yeah, I'm about to upgrade
Wow,
to.
iMovie's intense, actually.
Yeah, so
Like you can do a lot with it.
you can, but I'm getting to the point where I'm like, I need to move forward. You know, it's just I think I'm gonna get Final Cut Pro
Okay.
next because that's like a one-time payment of $300. It's just little by little buying the things I need. You know, like I got the camera and the microphone, and then the computer. I just bought the computer, so I might send out some graduation invites and get some money and then purchase that. So yeah, I'm starting to exhaust that resource. There's some things like, before I was like, this is great. Like, I don't know how I'll ever learn how to use it. And now I'm like, dude, I need to upgrade. Like, I can't do what I want with the channel. So, but, well, I appreciate you saying.
What's your overarching goal with it? Like, where do you want to take it in terms of like, in a perfect world, what would it look like a year from now?
Yeah. Well, I set my goal a couple episodes ago, that I want to have by the end of this year. I want to have 100,000 subscribers and then 25,000 listeners on my podcast, which I think is 100% doable. I mean,
for sure.
One, I know I put in the work. Like, that's the thing. Like, I know nobody works harder than me. Like, if I don't have the skill to do it, I'm gonna figure it out. And I'll provide the content. Like, I've been doing like crazy workouts and stuff like that. Today I did a 1 mile buddy carry with my brother, who's
oh my gosh,
all uphill. He's 220 pounds. I didn't drop him one time.
You're crazy, dude.
Yeah. So, just like I know, like I have these skills and abilities, and if I don't, like I can pick them up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a matter of time. It's been frustrating. That's a big reason I want to talk to you, because your stuff's been, obviously you probably want to be 50,000 followers deep right now, or like 100,000 or 1 million. But regardless, like you're making very good progress. And, once you get 100, it's a lot easier to get the next 100. And then the next 100 almost, it comes like quicker. It's like 10 times easier with everything.
That's right. Yeah. I think someone told me something once that was really valuable and helped change my perspective and really helped me feel like okay with everything, in the sense that like you want people who are there to support you. Like, you want people that are there like in your corner, because you're going to have people that aren't. And for every 10, crappy, not very active people you get following you, one person that does do that is worth obviously way more. And that's kind of a cliche, and it's true, but it's way better to have like 500 super like loyal into you people that follow your stuff than 6,000 who don't.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, I think that I don't know if I'll ever get to like 100K. I don't know. Like, I don't know anyone in my field that has.
Yeah.
Like the most popular person in my field has like 50K. On Twitter at least. And that's the medium I use more, just because it's less saturated. Mm-hmm. Everything's on Instagram these days. Instagram's flashy, it's sexy, but like I don't feel that it's as easy to break into. So I try to branch out as much as I can, and I find that really helps. So I really try to like care less about my follower count and more about like how many people I'm interacting with on a daily basis. Yeah. I find that is like my true measure of success, at least financially, at least in terms of like how much I bring in.
Sure. And I didn't really answer your question honestly when you asked, and I want to ask you a question in a second, but sure. the end goal is the same goal that I have right now, and the same thing I'm doing, and that's just to impact people, and to impact lives, especially as a Christian. I want to motivate and inspire and point people to truth. And if I feel called to do it through YouTube or podcasting or fighting, those are three things I love, then I'm going to do it. And so, but explain real quick for just kind of a synopsis for people listening. What is your field? Because you just said, 50,000. Just explain your field a little bit, and we'll get into that a little bit more.
You can cut this out, but I just realized I'm drinking a beer on this.
I did. I had Colby Covington on here a few weeks ago. So
okay, all right,
and he's talking.
All right. I just don't know what the
he was talking about how like I'm literally like sitting here listening. I'm like, okay, when's he gonna say something and he's like F-bombing guys that he doesn't like, and then I'm like, okay, that's pretty bad. A lot of my listeners are Christians, but okay, I'll put the big E. And then he says something. He's like, man, the only time you need to be angry is in the bedroom when you're giving it to a woman or something. I was like, oh
wow.
no. I was like, thanks, Colby.
Oh man, I love people like that. They're just so full of energy and just God, that's amazing.
Funny.
But good. Okay, you never know with these things.
Dude, I'm gonna have the people I want on, and they can do what they want. So I'm not gonna be drinking any beers on my podcast, but I do not care one bit if you do.
It's Saturday night. I need to do something.
Yeah.
But anyway, my field. I guess I would classify myself in the field of strength and conditioning.
Okay.
Really, like, there's a fine line between what makes a personal trainer and a strength coach in real life. Like, I think you're a strength coach if you work with a team, athletes on a regular basis, or you are like a private facility, which, that's your primary demographic. But for me, I work with both general population and athletes. So I don't know. Am I a personal trainer? It doesn't really matter. I don't really care. But at the end of the day, I think that my field is more geared towards less like general fitness tips and like posting daily workouts, and more like going into the biomechanics of the human body, more like thinking about, I'm a nerd, so I geek out on like the processes of behind things, like the neurology, like motor learning, things like that. And I think it keeps me motivated because I'm always still learning. And then I share that information with, the rest of the world. And hopefully people like it. Some people will, some people don't. But at the end of the day, I found that the whole typical fitness social media was very saturated. So I had to find a different way to break in and find a way to, say something unique, but also not outlandish. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I found that niche with what I talk about. And I was just so lucky at Oregon State. I just fell into the right internships at the right time, and I met the right people. If I didn't do that,
clearly
I wouldn't be. Yeah, exactly. So I didn't do that. I probably wouldn't be here. And it was a lot of luck, really. So
that's awesome, man. That's awesome. What kinds of things are you still in school, by the way? Are you doing school? No.
I've been out of school since 2 years now. Since
you left here? So you just okay? So you're not going for your master's or anything like that?
No, I thought about my master's, but I'm not going to make the amount of income because I'm going to have my own business. Like that's where I'm at now. Yeah. So it makes no difference for me to have my master's. I can just keep reading the same books master's students would read, and I can learn the same material, but not pay $80,000 to do it. Yeah,
not going to debt doing it too. That's a thing I've seen a lot of fit. Do you know who he's up in your area? Chris Duffin.
Yeah, he actually had a job opening at his facility lately.
Really?
Yeah, he did. He was hiring a strength coach, but it was super competitive. I didn't even get past the first round. So I mean, like not as if like I'm some baller who should, but I'm just saying like it was a highly competitive thing. It was sure. There were some big time names, but it's a big time gym, man. Chris Duffin's a big time dude.
Kabuki strength, but he's got a PhD level understanding of what he does, and he doesn't even have. I think he's got a bachelor's, and that's about it. And and you really, I think that's kind of going away within the fitness world of, it's more about experience and results than it is about classroom learning. At least from what I've seen and from what I would value, as far as that.
Man, I'll tell you what. Were you kinesiology?
I was kinesiology for a little bit, and I had to switch. So I actually failed chemistry. And that set me to a point where, and it was inevitable anyway, because when I transferred over, my credits didn't come in, and so I had to take, once I failed, I had to take like 25 credits in the summer just to stay kin, and I was like, dude, I want to be eligible for wrestling, and I can't do 25 credits in the summer. So
that's ridiculous. Yeah,
I switched it, and I had an easier time going through school, and I got my degree, and I'm doing what I like to do. So.
There you go. Yeah, well, you at least took a couple classes, so you understand where I'm coming from when I'm about to say that when it comes to what I learned in college in terms of strict classroom information, like it was I hate to say this, but it was kind of a joke in terms of the amount of money that was invested for the amount of knowledge I gained. I could have read those textbooks and just been, like if I were to read them today, granted I'm older and, more well-versed in reading things now and like studying the information. But if I were to just read those books today and just synthesize the information myself, I would not only probably have learned more because I would have had to do it on my own, but also like the amount I took out just because of the whole like memorize, hope you can do it tomorrow. Then after that, you just have no reason to remember it, so you forget. So I think I use, like, even if I remembered most things, I feel like I wouldn't use more than 20% of the information in real life that I learned. A lot of it wasn't very useful.
Yeah.
The most useful thing that in college was the connections that I formed and the internships that I had. That was really it. But also that brings me out to my other point of when it comes to like the whole education thing, like the master's degree, I don't feel like I need it because people usually get a master's degree because they're either like hungry for information, they want to learn, they genuinely want to learn, or they want more letters behind their name so that they get a better paycheck, which is completely respectable. I get that. But I don't feel like I need more letters behind my name because it's not going to benefit me. And I think I can build credibility by just consistently putting out good things with content, with videos, with presentations, things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and I don't know if I asked you to be on the podcast, but the name of it is actually, it's all about who you know. And a big reason is because of what you said. It's more about who you know than what you know when it comes to school. I mean, I have not retained hardly anything from school, but I have so many amazing connections, and 95% of what I learned in those 5 years was not in the classroom. It was actually my own studying, because I don't think the school system is very great as far as how they, first of all, they give you so much workload. I mean, one class is enough to, fill an entire term. So it forces students to feel overwhelmed and not have to, they go to ulterior means to getting their work done, whether it's cheating, whether it's, slogging through it or not even doing it, period. And I feel like it's not intelligent, in my opinion. I feel like it'd be so much better, instead of having 50 questions, have 10 questions and get it done in class, as opposed to having 50 questions that kids are rushed for time. They're not going to learn it. They're overwhelmed, and then they're going to cheat on it anyway, And I think that's a real miss. And I like what you said too, as far as not getting your, not going for your master's. And that's something that's kind of going away in some areas, but in other areas it's not. But everybody complains like, oh, school isn't, it's not what it's all cracked up to be, or it's not as helpful, or I didn't really need to do it. It's like, well, why don't you just bite the bullet and not do it and show people that you don't need it
exactly
to that extent, and that you can do this job without it. Obviously, you might have a few more hurdles you have to jump through, but that's going to set up your kids, the next generation, and just setting the culture to, hey, the most experienced person is going to get this job, not the person that went through 4 years of BS,
Yeah. And really what it comes down to, at least when I talk to people that are really good at what they do, they don't have the master's degree. They're just really successful. They're just really passionate about what they do. And again, another cliche, but really, like, you understand this with what you do with your material and how you create content and how you are chasing what you want to do. Like, it doesn't feel like work all the time. Sometimes, very rarely is what I do work to me. It's I probably spend, like, in terms of me pursuing financial gain in one direct or indirect way, I would probably say I work 60 hours a week. And this is during coronavirus time. Like, I'm constantly doing things. Always. But at the same time, it's, it's a gift and a curse, because it can inhibit other areas of your life. Like, I don't, I probably don't have a good work-life balance, but I don't need one because I don't really care. Because I think at the end of the day, it's like how you feel. And if you're happy with who you are, then why would you need to change what you're doing, as long as you're not affecting other people in a negative way? So I think for me, and I'm sure you can attest to this too, like, it's not work, and it's out of passion. And that's what I think makes what I do at least valuable to some people because, like, for example, I tweet out a thread every single day just as something that I learned. And it was like, I'm trying to synthesize the information so that I can explain it to other people, because the best way to learn something is to teach it. So if I have to tell 12,000 people what this is and, put my neck out there and because if you say something wrong, you're going to get assassinated on Twitter.
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that it's good. So it's a good way for me to, teach myself something and also talk about something I'm passionate about.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. You said it's funny how you rarely get the love comments. Like, people that like you, they won't really say much, but people that hate you or diss you, they're willing to, sit at their keyboard and say whatever they want. It's just like, come on. I remember I posted that swim video and I posted it to Reddit a couple times, and some people were like, I had 2 comments.
Oh, Reddit's the worst.
Oh, it's horrible. I posted something
it's worse than Twitter.
I posted something to a Christian site there, and people were like coming at me. And I was like,
oh, that's so funny. Oh,
I was like, what? And I don't respond. I want to, but I see it and I'm like, ugh. But one guy was like, yeah, that wetsuit must have made it toasty or something. I was like, bro, I was in the Oregon coast.
Yeah.
Like, real toasty.
People just like look to poke holes in things. Like, you were just trying to share an experience with someone and they have to say something like that. Like, what is that? Like, why would you do that?
Well, one thing I said about it too was, my dad just got out of the hospital. He actually had coronavirus and lost like a bunch of weight and, could have died. And so I just felt like, some of these workouts I've been doing, a lot of them require 0 weight, and they're hard as shit. Like, it's like,
yeah.
And so, like, I was just like, I not started the hashtag, but I've been using this hashtag, like, suffer together, just because, like, you look at like wrestling teams or just teams in general, or SEAL teams in the military, like, those are the strongest bonds people form, and it's because they go through like some of the hardest things together. And you see, like, in marriage, like, when a couple can overcome like a loss of a child or some type of hurdle. That's just one that came to mind because I actually have a friend whose marriage went through that. But something like that, those are the strongest bonds, because it's like, nothing's going to break this. If this didn't break it, this little thing's not going to break it. And so like, suffering together, just like, I don't feel like the rest of the world should be suffering and me just like sitting at home. So I'm going to do some crazy, stupid workouts to try to get a glimpse of, obviously not going to even be close to what people are going through, but just to try to, like, people were doing the 10 push-up challenge, and that really pissed me off because that's not a challenge at all.
It's funny.
And so I was like, this is stupid. Like, I'm going to do something hard. And so, yeah. But, crap, you said something, and I forgot where I was. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, that's kind of my thoughts there as far as that goes.
Yeah, man.
But
that's I think that's very well said, and it's very true too. You don't see too many like really honestly, you don't see too many like really charismatic people, really like just, people that everyone likes to be around. Usually those people have been through something and they have a story to share, and that's what makes them interesting in my experience. Yeah.
No, yeah, it's so true. It's just like, it's the people, it's sometimes like you wouldn't expect it either, because you're like, why are you so nice and fun-loving? But, you've gone through some hard things. So, yeah, it is. It's fun, but it's kind of weird. It's kind of a weird, like, give and take. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. So, the, you saying it not work. I completely understand that, as far as, like, like, you're very passionate about, like, fitness and everything, and you're studying and stuff, and you put in like 60 hours a week. Is it hard for you to take a rest day?
Yeah, it really is. And I think it's unhealthy. I really do, because I feel like I should be able to turn off a light switch if I need to. Yeah. And the fact that I can't is indicative of a bigger problem. So that's probably just me being attached to the idea of being someone and, trying to pursue my goals too hard. And I think that that's just what happens. Like, I feel it when, you have, God, I hate talking about this. When you have people that tell you you're good at something, it feeds your ego. And even if it's just like a couple hundred people, it still does. So I can see how people that have very large followings could be total douchebags.
Yeah.
So I try to recognize that, it's not that big of a deal. But because I'm so, driven to get better, I find that it's very hard for me to turn off that light switch of working. So while I will never have a true good work-life balance, and that's fine with me, I should still be able to relax during coronavirus of all things and enjoy myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like without thinking about the next thing I need to do for my career or for my client tomorrow or things like that. And that's not the case all the time, but I find myself thinking about it more and more the deeper I get into it. So,
yeah, no, I completely, like, I can relate to that. Like the other day I was like, okay, I'm, obviously trying to promote the channel, trying to edit, trying to do all this stuff. I was like, okay. And I've been posting a lot more on social media. I'm trying to win. Have you heard of First Form?
I've heard of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Big supplement company. They do an athlete search every year. So I'm trying to win their athlete search as well. So that's a little bit of a motivating factor behind all this stuff. And so I've been a lot more active on social media and everything, but just trying to publicize. But I tried to take an off day the other day. I was like, okay, no social media today. Dude, I couldn't do it. And it's not like I'm obsessed with like looking at other people's social media. I'm obsessed with editing. I'm obsessed with making the best video I can. I'm obsessed with like providing value to other people, like those things. And I just like, it was hard to stay away. Like it was so hard.
Yeah. I think, I can only speak for myself, but I think it's an inability to remain grounded in what's going on around you and like the present moment, so to speak. It's an inability to like be happy with the circumstances that are going on within, what's going on right now. This coronavirus thing is boring. I don't want to, be in reality right now. So I go and I wander off to La La Land on social media where I can be someone, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is for me personally. But, I think also it's a mix of that and just loving what we do. And I think it's a symptom of, I think these things go hand in hand. It's hard to separate them sometimes. I think there's pros and cons to everything. But ultimately all we can do is be aware of it and try to not let it affect us that much and just be balanced.
Yeah. What kinds of things are you doing just for like, as far as lifting and stuff? Do you have access to a gym or are you?
I have a barbell that I bought. I think I bought literally the last barbell in any fitness equipment store in Portland. Literally, I went to all of them, every single one. I spent 9 hours.
Where'd you end up getting it? Give them a shout out.
Oh my gosh, I cannot remember the name of it. Oh no.
They're probably the least worthy of a shout out because they were the last ones to have a barbell.
Yeah.
So it's either they're the worst or they just had such a big stock.
Yeah. I can't remember. Fitness something Portland. Fitness Supply. I don't know.
Fitness something Portland. Shout them out. Go check them out.
Yeah, like they sold me this barbell for $250. Used.
Oh no.
Decent condition, but like you can buy a brand new amazing Olympic barbell for $300. And that's
I've got a Rogue bar right out here that I bought for $255. It's the best bar.
Yeah.
It's so good for Olympic weightlifting. It's great for powerlifting and whatever you want to do. Like I've had that bar. We've had it for 5-6 years now, and it has held up like it's crazy. You could put 10 or not 1,000. You could put 900 pounds, 1,000 pounds on it, and it would whip. It'd be great.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And that was, 250, whatever, 255. You said?
Yeah. I mean, it was 5-6 years ago. So that bar is probably about a $300 or $400 bar now. I think their bar prices have gone up. But yeah, still.
But yeah, I have this barbell. I have some really crappy 45-pound plates. And that's pretty much it.
Nice.
But it's hard. Like you can only do so much. Like I have a bench too, but I can't. Have you ever tried to get 225 on your chest from like a seated position with the bar on your hips? It's impossible.
You'd have to clean it up and then sit. Oh, that would be.
Yeah.
I mean, I did walk my brother a mile, but it is.
Yeah, there you go. You could probably do it.
I'm a bigger guy, but
it's just hard. I do floor presses.
Yeah. It's crazy because and I was talking to my roommate, my old roommate. about this the other day. I was talking to my brother about this. I was like, there's going to be some starting lineups that look a lot different than what they penciled in before all this started, because like this is there's a podcast coming out tomorrow for us, which is Easter Sunday. And I talk about this, but like the ability to be resourceful in this time is going to be like invaluable. Mm-hmm. Like guys that are able and willing to get in the gym, because a lot of guys in my experience, they work out because they have to work out, and they excel because they have to work out. And so when that's not like put on them, I feel like it's a great equalizer. And like there's going to be some guys that make some starting lineups or All-American, win national titles, and girls too. I'm saying guys as a generalization, but that we're not predicted to, because they were the ones that were resourceful and got after it and determined. And I really do think this is an amazing opportunity to level the playing field for the people that want it the most.
Yeah, I think this situation is inherently stressful. Like even if we don't feel it, I think like we're thrown out of our routines, and like that stress on the body, like our nervous system doesn't like that. Our brain doesn't like that. Sure. So when you put yourself in an entirely new circumstance, like you're inherently, for lack of a better term, you're going to be releasing hormones that are going to be detrimental to your performance. So in a sense, this is either going to break people if they're unable to train effectively, or they're letting this life circumstance get to them. But for the people that can adapt to this situation and actually use it as a means to recover more, because there's no life obligations that are encouraging that bad stress, because really like stress is like a bucket. Mm-hmm. You can only hold so much before you overspill, and then you're overtraining, and then you're not recovering. So if you can use all this free time to train more, so you can use all this free time to recover more, then I think that is ultimately going to be the separator during this time, because really like you can either let this time add to your stress, you can let it take away from stress out of that bucket.
Yeah. I've been wondering this too, because, obviously like I train a little differently, but we're fortunate enough. I trained out of my garage in high school, like we have all the equipment. We've built it up over the years. My dad bought it when he was a little older than I am now. So we have a bunch of stuff that's held up over the years. So I can, we can do what we want. But can somebody that doesn't have equipment or doesn't have anything, can they be resourceful? And you're a better person to answer this. But like, let's say a bodybuilder or a CrossFitter or a powerlifter, can they get better at their given field in this time? Or do they have to get better at something else?
That's a really good question. It all depends on what equipment they have available to them. I think that I don't know if Home Depot's open for like anyone right now, but I'm sure in some states.
I went to Lowe's the other day, and California, I'm pretty sure, is the most conservative right now towards this. So, okay.
Well, I know that for a fact every fitness supply store in the country is probably picked clean by now. So that's a pipe dream. But in terms of like going to Home Depot, finding sandbags, you can buy, or at least like 2 months ago, before this whole thing started, 3 months ago, I bought 25-pound sandbags for $3 each. And you stack enough of those into some container. Yeah. I think you're certainly not going to get, you're not going to be training in the 75 plus range, but you can get enough weight to where you're doing something with like, even if it's unilateral, you can really certainly keep your gains. And I think it's a great time to train isometrics. I think it's a great time to train eccentrics. And I am like, for my online clients, especially the ones that are athletes, we're hammering isometrics right now, because the more that I read into isometrics, the more I realize way more really good sports teams, way more really good fighters, way more really good athletes in general do more isometrics than a lot of people could even imagine. So I think it's an essential part of performance that often goes overlooked. And obviously not everyone that's a great athlete ever is doing isometrics. I'm just saying it is definitely an underrated quality, and it's an opportunity to train this. And it's also an opportunity for these power lifters, for these people that lift really heavy weights, strength athletes, to use this time to use a lighter load and reinforce really good positioning. Like if your squat form is, not ideal, if your deadlift form, your split squat form isn't quite what you want it to be, then you can absolutely hammer higher reps with lower loads and then have the fatiguing part be trying to keep good position. I mean, this applies more to like field athletes and like fighters. But, for a powerlifter, they probably care less about this. But, if I'm training an athlete, I want to reinforce perfect position, because if I'm training them and I'm not having them have perfect position when they're fatigued, then I'm just training them to compensate when they're fatigued. Sure. So why would I want to reinforce that? I think the real struggle in terms of when the reps get heavy, even with light loads, like the hard part, the mentally challenging part is keeping perfect form while grinding through those reps. Yeah, you're probably going to be done sooner, but you're going to be reinforcing way better patterns than if you were just like, I don't know, have terrible form and just get another 4 reps. Well, what did you just do? Yeah. You just made yourself worse.
Yeah. Now I know what you're talking about, but I think there's a lot of listeners that don't. But can you explain isometric and eccentric just for people in a nutshell?
Absolutely. So let's think about a jump. A jump's a really good example of this. A plyometric activity where you are like explosive. So when you jump, you have to utilize something called the stretch shortening cycle, which is essentially you going into a rapid muscle lengthening. So when I cock down in a jump just before I explode off the ground, that little dip is going to be the eccentric movement. We have muscles lengthening. Some muscles are shortening, but they're not really contracting. You're kind of going with gravity. You have very few muscles contracting. You have more of your prime movers, more of your explosive muscles like your glutes and your hamstrings lengthening out as you drop into that counter movement portion of a jump when you're dropping. So those muscles are going to be rapidly stretched. And then you have certain signals that go on within your muscle that sense this stretch. And then you have a very, very, very brief period of a total pause. And then that is the phase where you switch to concentric muscle activity, where you push through the ground, you lengthen out, and you push the floor away, and you're explosive. But that little tiny period of isometric is extremely important, because your tendons are acting in a way, the things that hold your muscles to bones, those are stretching, and those are the things that are responsible for how much force you can ultimately output when your muscle is the limiting factor. In a stretch shortening cycle, you want strong tendons. You want to be springy. You don't really care about strength. You want to be springy more than anything else. So if you want to be explosive, think about your tendons. And to train your tendons, isometrics are a really good way to do that. You could get in something like a split squat position and just hold the bottom of it for anywhere between 5 to 45 seconds. Usually I do about 15 seconds, 15 to 25, somewhere in there. But you can go anywhere in that range.
Now, what's the term when you're doing slower reps?
Slower is eccentric. That would be like a 5-second lowering into the bottom of a squat, for example.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I was, it's just a really, it's a really challenging time. I was looking into blood flow restriction.
That's good stuff.
I feel like, and I want to get your opinion on it, because, I'm the type of guy, I'll try just about anything. I haven't studied as much, and obviously we, discussed earlier how I left kinesiology. So as far as the studying goes, you definitely have a leg up. As far as the experience, you probably have a leg up. So I'll mainly try something and see if it works. I've done powerlifting, bodybuilding, not competitively, but CrossFit, all of it. And I've kind of Bruce Lee almost like taken what I like and integrated it, which I personally, I think as far as me as an athlete, like what I want to do, I think it's worked great and I love it. But yeah, blood flow is something I want to get your opinion on just personally, because, like you said, you can't do your 75 to 80% range where most gains are made, that a lot of people use. But blood flow has been something that, for anybody that's listening that doesn't know, you cut off the restriction at the top of the muscle. So if you're doing your arms, you go right where the bicep, the tricep meet the shoulder. If you're doing your legs, if you want to build your quads, like right where it meets the hip, and so on and so forth. You get the idea. And you cut it off, and that allows you to do about 20 to 40 and get the same gains that you would in less time with less weight.
Right. The idea behind it, and I'm not an expert in blood flow. In fact, I know really not a ton relative to other things, but I do know that I was not a believer in it first, but there's a lot more science now that shows that, yeah, it's actually probably a legit thing. Because it just seemed like another one of those gimmicky things,
Yeah.
but turns out it's not. It's actually kind of legit. So
Legit.
it's not like night and day, but it's significant to the point where you might want to consider it. And the idea is that because you're cutting off the blood flow, you are increasing the amount of muscle damage you're doing by increasing the amount of like localized like metabolites that build up. So when you like break down a muscle through a set of bicep curls, you're, slowly accumulating these little metabolites within your muscle and bloodstream, localized within the muscle. And then this increases the rate of that. So you can get a much bigger response by cutting off the flow of fresh oxygen to shuttle those metabolites out. So essentially, you're just increasing the amount of demand on that muscle by not delivering as much fresh oxygen. So the metabolite buildup is bigger. Therefore, you're breaking down your muscle more. So you're getting more of a response. But as far as I'm aware, and I could be wrong about this, very well could be wrong, it is really mainly like a hypertrophy adaptation. You're not going to want to do this for strength training. If you want to get stronger, not your best strategy. But if you want to get bigger, absolutely. The only thing is I don't work with a lot of people who want to get bigger. I work with like weight class people, weight class athletes, and athletes like a wide receiver who don't want to gain weight.
Yeah.
So I don't use hypertrophy methodologies too much, but if I were to, then this is a strategy I've utilized in the past with success. But honestly, I haven't done it more than, probably a lot of other people have.
Sure. Yeah, I feel like it's almost... Well, I got my door open. There's a bunch of dogs barking. Sorry.
I thought that was outside my window.
Now, I just... Disclaimer, if it looks like I'm in my parents' basement, I'm not. I'm in their garage. So let's just keep that clear. No, I feel like, especially with... Well, first of all, what type of athletes do you work with?
So that's a good question. So I've worked with everyone under the sun. I mean, obviously I'm still young, so it's not like I'm some, like trainer guru who's worked with everyone, but I've worked with every type of athlete I can imagine. I've worked, because I went down to Exos in Phoenix, I worked with Olympic track athletes. I worked with NFL players, NBA players, NHL players, semi-pro players, like the Swiss hockey team players. I've worked with, a bunch of youth athletes. In North Carolina, I was basically in charge of starting up a strength and conditioning program at a local high school. So I worked with a lot of high school athletes. And obviously, I've worked with a ton of college athletes. Over here in Oregon, that's, who I primarily have been working with. Over in Exos, we had a ton of college athletes. That's probably our biggest population, in fact. And obviously at Oregon State, for a year and a half, all I did was work with college athletes. So that was, I really do feel like, and also in North Carolina, I was working 3 hours a day with no one but people over the age of 50. So, I mean, I really do know how the human body tends to work in a lot of different populations. And what's interesting, this might be a tangent, but everyone kind of needs the same things. You would be amazed at the similarities in terms of like what we need to do with an 85-year-old grandma with a walker and a sprinter. That's like trying to make, what was it, like Brazil? Was that the last Summer Olympics?
Yeah, Brazil 2016.
Yeah.
I believe.
Rio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
There's a lot of similarities because the human body, like we're different, but we're not that different.
Yeah. The foundation's the same.
We still have 4 limbs. We still have our organs packed one way, our brains wired a certain way. So we kind of tend to compensate similarly.
Wow. Okay, so back to the BFR. Yeah, I feel like it'd be more like a passion project if you're working with like an athlete on blood flow restrictions. Like for me personally, like I've got small arms, and like it's not crazy disproportional anymore, but I would like to have bigger arms. And so like I'll do blood flow restriction, or I'll work a little bit on the, my arms or whatever. It has nothing to do with my athletic performance. It's 100% aesthetic based.
Yeah. The thing with that is like, and this, and it bums people out, but that's so genetic in terms of how, like, what muscles you can get big and what muscles you can't. Like me, I can't build my delts. Can't do it. It's never going to happen. I've tried real hard, and I just gave up on it. Because not that I don't train delts, but like I just gave up on trying to grow them so aggressively because I just, like, my genetics aren't ready for it. Like they're not, I don't have them. And people have pros and cons. Like, to you, you're a big dude. Your genetics are to be strong as hell. So that's what you're really good at. But like a side effect of that for your genetics is like you can't get 20-inch arms. But I'd rather be way stronger than have big arms.
Sure. So what is your, like, let's say somebody comes up to you and they're like, hey, and I don't know if you train powerlifters or not, but like say, hey, like I got a big upper body just naturally. I work my legs like crazy. My squat is not as good as I would want it to be. Or maybe vice versa. Like, hey, I could be an elite level powerlifter, but I can't get my bench, even in the 400 range, but I squat like 700-800 pounds. What is your, and it, obviously it can be said for a bodybuilder or any sport, pick your poison wherever you want to put that. But like, what would be your advice as a trainer? Like if somebody came up to you and said, hey, like I'm, thinking about doing this sport, but this is my genetic deficiency. You said about your delts, like, just kind of gave up on it, but a different scenario, somebody else is like, I'm trying to compete with this. Like, how would you approach that?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. And I think it really is very genetic. Like, I'll give you not a direct example, but something that will help prove my point. There was a study done of distance runners, sprinters, and middle distance runners. And the ones that were sprinters tended to have stronger musculature hips. So their genetics predisposed them to have stronger muscular hips and bigger hypertrophied hips, but they had longer femurs, longer thigh bones, and they had thinner calves. The musculature down low, below their knee, was significantly smaller relative to their hips. And then as you progress towards middle and then long distance running, you find it's the inverse, right? So sprinters tend to be shorter, distance runners tend to be taller, and they tend to have smaller trunks, and they tend to have like this lean body, where sprinters tend to be like relatively thicker and more muscular, but their genetics set them up like that. So it's really like the idea of, well, should people that have that body type just go for sprinting right away? Because we know more tend to be like that, but there's always outliers, right? Yeah. But just strictly probability speaking, I think people should see what their pros and cons are. And if you're trying to pick a sport, if you're like a sophomore in high school, you need to figure out what you're doing. Or you're like an athlete in college, you need to like make a decision between two sports. Look at what the best people have in their sports. Look at like the elite D1 people, or if you're in D3, look at the elite D3 people, see what their limb lengths look like, see how they're built, and look at yourself, and then make an honest assessment. Because just talking in terms of probability, like, yeah, you could be an outlier, but good luck, because you're probably not. Just talking about probability. So go with what probably works, which is what most of the best people look like. If you look like that, then there's probably a better chance you're going to be more successful at that sport.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I always thought it was funny when, wrestling is always in the same season as basketball, and I stopped playing basketball to wrestle. So every time I'd see a guy like 5'2" who's, done growing, going out for the basketball team, I'd be like, dude, what are you doing? Like, stop.
Yeah.
Like, or they'll be like, I'm still a lofty goal kind of guy, like I'm, starting my MMA career. As far as I'm concerned, like I'm going to be the, world champ within the next decade. Like that's that's just how I think, even though my wrestling career, like I thought till the bitter end that I was going to be a national champ this year. I was like, I don't care what my record is or what. So I've always been that way. I'm always going to be that way. That's how God made me, and I've pushed into it. But like sometimes, but I don't think that comes from nowhere. I don't think that's like, it's really hard because I feel like somebody could say, well, yeah, you look at you, like you're built like somebody that would do that, like me and the guy that won nationals last year, like we're built exactly the same. Yeah. And so like, it's not like, so it's just tough for me to relate. Like when I was in high school, I didn't think genetics were a thing. Like I didn't think like anybody, I thought like I remember I heard a coach say one thing. He was like, we're not going to bring a 5.2 down to a 4.2, but we can probably bring a 5.2 40 to like a 4.8 or a 4.7. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, if somebody works hard, they can get a 4.2. Like, that's just how I thought. Yeah. And I still have that. I'm just a little bit more intelligent of it. But I don't know where the balance is.
The best people have better than average genetics, and they have that mentality, I think, because that's what helps drive them to be successful. Because if you don't think you can win, like genuinely, then you're not, you're just going to putter out. You're going to quit, or you're just going to lose all the time. Yeah. So you definitely have better than average genetics, without a doubt. You're a strong dude. You're a D1 athlete for a reason. So I think that, the genetic thing is so big. I've worked with the funniest thing, the craziest thing I've ever seen as a trainer. So I was working with an NBA All-Star in Phoenix, and it's not like I was training him. It was, I was just shadowing the trainer.
Oh, come on, man. Don't throw yourself under the bus.
I'm being honest. I did have a couple of one-on-one sessions with him, so I take credit. I say I did train him because I was involved with his life for 3 months. But he could not do 5 body weight pull-ups. This guy weighed $185.
Was he like 6'8"?
And he was 6'2".
Okay, that's skinny, man.
6'1" maybe.
Like if you're
he was 195. Let's be honest.
Okay, that's not super.
195, 6'1".
Yeah,
that sounds about right. And this guy was just jacked to all hell. Like he looked like a bodybuilder when he took his shirt off. I'm like, hey man, how much do you work out in season? Like, what do you do? Like, how do you clearly conditioning is a thing for you, but like, how much chest are you doing? Yeah. And he's like, man, I work out for like half an hour twice a week in the weights. I'm like, you what? He's like, yeah. So like, what do you do? Like, what's going on? And what's going on when you're doing these workouts? Yeah, he's like, well, we're probably doing like split squats. I'm like, how much weight are you using? He's like, 25s. And he had the best genetics ever. And that's why he was an all-star. Not saying he didn't work hard. Of course he did. Yeah. But he had the genetics to get there. I will never be an NBA all-star no matter how hard I try, because I just don't have those genetics unless I were to be, maybe if I had a Kobe Bryant mentality. But it's also like nature versus nurture, you know, like I think that's what shapes our mindset as well. Like me, when I grew up, my parents tried to, frankly, they babied me. And when I was a high schooler, I was really lazy because of that, because I wasn't motivated, because I always had everything taken care of for me. And I had to get to the point where it was like, man, sack up, just get after it, find something you love. And thank God I did. But it took me, finding something I was passionate about to really unlock that within myself. But I really do think back to the point earlier, those experiences shape us into a different mindset, into a different ability to perceive things and, change who we are, so to speak.
Yeah. And here's the thing too, is like in my experience, and I've been around the block a little bit in my short time on this earth, but there's not too many people walking around that haven't failed at something and figure out that was just not their thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like that NBA player, like sure, he, I've been around guys like that. I had a guy on my podcast recently who outed himself, so I can say that, he didn't work out hard, but he was undefeated. He just destroyed everybody, D1 All-American. That guy would go in the gym, the weight room, and just talk to the coaches and looked like a Greek god. And it was just like, dude, what the heck is going, like, I don't he looks like he could be a bodybuilder. And he did not work out one time that whole year. He did not lift one. I remember he did some arm curls like once, and that was it. And then like I remember we were doing sprints, and he was going up and down, like we were doing partner sprints up the stadiums, and he had no partner and was still going. And I was just like, dude, like what is going on? But those guys have had something that they've come across that they couldn't do. And I think it's real easy to look at like guys like that are NBA All-Stars and stuff, and it's easy to get down on yourself. But it's just like we can't all do the same thing. If everybody on earth was trying to be an NBA All-Star, we wouldn't have doctors, we wouldn't have lawyers, we wouldn't have any other thing than a bunch of people trying to be NBA All-Stars and a few of them that were, So
that would be something.
And that's like we're all made differently, and that would just be a faulty society that would implode on itself. But I think everybody can be the best at something, like you can be the best you. Yeah, and here's the thing is most people aren't being the best them. You know what I mean?
I think people need purpose. I think people need to find something that fires them up. Because imagine, like, I was just thinking this the other day. Like, imagine if, like, because neither of us can relate to this. Imagine you got fired from your job, a job you maybe didn't like, so you weren't super happy with your life circumstances in the first place. Now you're not getting paid. You can't even go to this job. And you're just sitting at home in your 1-bedroom apartment, and you can't leave your house, and you're just sitting there. Like, can you imagine how draining that must be? I mean, that must be awful. And there's millions of those people right now. And I just think, like, imagine if they had something they were passionate about, like a hobby they were passionate about. Yeah. I think everyone can be the best, just like you said, at something. They just need to find what that is, and you're not going to find what that is unless you actually expose yourself to a lot of things.
Yeah. You see, you say that, and I've put myself in that mindset, and I'm like, okay, well, what would I do? I already have like a plan. Like I already have and I'm sure you do too. Like, and I think most people don't have a plan or a resilience to, okay, what do I do if something like this goes wrong? Like I told my mom, like I was like, hey, listen, I'm not getting a full-time job. I want to be a world champ in MMA, and I'll sleep in my car to do it. And if they take the car away, like I'll sleep in a box. Like that's my goal. And like I will, like worst case scenario, I'll be homeless. Okay.
So what? Yeah.
So like, so what? It's only going to be for a short period of time, and that's not even worst case scenario, because I have people that would, like, I already know people will let me sleep on their couch, like, like, and I'm not gonna beg, but like there's dorms at the gym, like I have resources available, and I think it's real sad that a lot of people aren't willing to sleep in their car to get what they want.
That's a pretty good metaphor. Yeah, I mean, there was something you said that really reminded me of something that's really cool. Is there's a book, and it's called Think and Grow Rich. It's like this. Have you ever heard of it? It was written by Napoleon Hill in the Great Depression, just after the Great Depression. And you probably haven't heard of it. It was literally written in like 1930 something. And it's still a popular book today for a reason. It's like one of those get rich quick books disguised as that, but it's really just like an incredibly powerful book. And it talks about how there were more millionaires made in the Great Depression than at any point in history. And I think, like, hey, we're kind of close right now. So if this keeps going, especially. So really, like, there is a bunch of opportunity right now. You just have to find what that is. Yeah. Like, I'm lucky that I just have the online thing going, so I can at least like survive, and that keeps me busy. But at the same time, like, where was I going with that whole Think and Grow Rich thing? Millionaires. It says that when it comes down to like people who are very successful, those are the people that they literally, and I know it sounds weird, but they literally like genuinely tell themselves that. Like, the idea is that the input you put into your brain is the output of what you're going to do. So if you're constantly exposing yourself to social media and you're envious of other things going on, if you're constantly like feeding, it's like nutrition for your head, for your mind, for your soul, pretty much. So if like you keep feeding it crap, you're going to output crap. And if you keep thinking bad things about yourself, you're going to output crap. Yeah. So unless you literally tell yourself,
it's kind of like the law of attraction.
Exactly. And I think that's very powerful. And I think it's a good tool to use. And there's a lot of people that are very successful that I've talked to that cite that book all the time. I'm like, I should probably read it.
Yeah, I call it the I have a term I like to use for it. I don't know where I got this from. I think I might just say it myself, but I call it the billionaire mindset. And it's like the like when you see a billionaire and like the way they interact and the way they talk, or the willingness that they have to do what they do. Like, people are like, you work how many hours a week? You do what? Like, why is he why is he saying that? Like, why does he think that way? Or why does she think that way? But then that same person will be like, man, I wish I had the life they had and the money they have. It's like, you don't understand. The reason they have that is because they think the way that you don't. Like, they think that way.
Yeah.
And it's that thought process. And athletes have it too, a very elite level athletes. There's a guy, like David Goggins is, Ross Edgley's, like people that'll go through like extreme, things, like Navy SEALs have it. But it's like, I will do whatever it takes to achieve a goal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and so I call it the billionaire mindset. And I think the big thing with people and with, getting what you want is not changing. The first thing you have to change is your mental habits, like the way you think, the willingness, like, because willingness is a choice, like motivation's kind of crap, but like determination is different.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
discipline.
It's real easy to do something you're motivated to do, but when when you have to do it out of discipline, like I think that's a lot more commendable than somebody that's motivated to do something. Like I've had workouts where I'm like, dude, I'm ready to go. And those workouts go by so fast. I remember one of the hardest workouts I ever had at Oregon State was, I was deadlifted or whatever. And then the Oregon State gymnastics team came in and I was, my time in between sets was cut down in like half, and the weight I was putting on was doubled, and I was just like going after it,
Right.
And none of them were looking. None of them were looking at me.
That. Yeah.
But like that's just, and that's how guys are too. It's like when girls come around, like it's just
testosterone.
You got to work. Like I don't know if that's a primal thing that we have, or it's just like that desire to impress.
Let me ask you this, like,
sure.
It's easy to talk about these like ideas of, like have discipline, work really hard, great. Like those are all words that are important and powerful, but there's people that listen to this stuff all day and like ultimately they're not going to do it. They like listening to it. Mm-hmm. It motivates them for maybe a workout or a something productive, but ultimately their behavior is not changed. Mm. Why do you think that? Like in terms of like, because that's who you're trying to motivate people. You're trying to reach them on a level that matters and is meaningful. You're trying to help change people's lives positively. So like, what is the disconnect between the people that listen and like, because I don't know, I feel like there's something innate within people, and like people either have something or they don't, they either have that it factor of like they're gonna grind like with your mindset, and it's obviously a spectrum, and there's people that don't do anything and sit all day, but there's also like an in between, and most people are somewhere along that spectrum. But it just seems like you meet certain people, and the ones that are successful just have some sort of, I can't even describe it, but it's like some factor, some energy that some people just seem to never acquire. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, first of all, obviously, it's easy to talk about, and, I just graduated college, so I think a lot of people would hear me and be like, what is this guy talking about? But, I first of all, there's a lot of action behind what I'm saying. I've grinded my whole life. I'm not afraid to work, and that's never been. That's
no doubt.
Yeah. So,
but there's a lot of people that sure. are afraid to grind.
I think. Well, first of all, I think my purpose and my value and my worth are not in something that can be taken away from me. So somebody could come in here and shoot me, and I would lose my legs or whatever, and my athletic career would be over. My purpose, my value, my worth, my goals, my mission is still going to be the same, because I'm not chasing necessarily after that. That's just a means to get to where I want to get to. My life is, me as a Christian, like my life is based in that, and that's not going away. Like my faith and my relationship with God is not going anywhere. So that's where I root my life in, and that's what, as far as anybody can, in my opinion, can do that. And so, and I think we're all built differently. Like I'll have conversations with people, elite level athletes, that still don't think the same way as I do. And so I think there are some people that are built differently, and I don't think they're wrong for thinking the way they do, and I don't think I'm wrong for being as intense as I am. I think we're all given a different mindset to do certain tasks, but I think we're all meant to be successful at something. Whether that's being the best parent in the world, being the best son, being the best NFL player, like whatever it is, like I think we're all built to be amazing at something. You know, because here's the thing, like not everybody can be the best, you know, athlete in the world, but everybody can be the best dad to their children, you know. And some people are being the worst possible dad to their children, and they're the only ones in the competition. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, so that's what that. I don't know if that answered your question, but I do think some people are built differently as far as mindset goes. And
well, I guess I'm getting philosophical and like the idea of like changing behavior, you know, like the idea of like actually making a lasting change in terms of like you have to change your psychology to do that sense.
Well, I can date back to when it switched for me. So most of my life has been, you know, a switch flipping, like instantly, not a gradual, like all the big decisions I've made, you know, to be an MMA fighter, to go to Oregon State, to do YouTube. There was another one on there, but you know, all these big things that I've made decisions on have been immediate. Like the idea comes to my head and boom, that's what we're doing. Like to buddy carry my brother today. I thought of that last week, and it was one thought that came in my head during church last Sunday, and I was like, that's what I'm doing. And then, you know, I did a 5-day fast the week before that, and same type of thing. So, but I can remember where that all started, and it was sophomore year of high school. And this was before I was really working hard. This was before I was really determined to get what I wanted. I had big goals and I had big dreams, but I didn't have the work ethic behind it. And I remember I got done with districts my sophomore year. My coach came up to me and he said, hey, you know, all the guys I see going to state and, you know, winning this tournament are the guys I see in the off season. And these last 2 years you've been in high school, I haven't seen you in the off season. And you know, I think you are a hardworking kid when you're in the room, but I think if you have the goals you have, you need to be hardworking, you know, on other time. And man, it hit me like a ton of bricks. It wasn't as convicting as I made it just sound, but I remember like that was the switch. And
it's just something like that. You never know.
And I did 3 sports that year. I went to wrestling practice after track. You know, football, we'd have 4-hour practices, and I'd be in the wrestling room wrestling with college guys, and my teammates would come up and be like, bro, you're crazy. Like, why are you in here? Like, we just had a crazy 4-hour practice in 100-degree heat. And I was like, dude, I'm going to be a state champ. Like, that's all there is to it. And unfortunately, I was not. I lost by 1 point in the state finals, but
I
was JV. I wrestled a match JV as a junior. You know, like I had a losing record as a sophomore, and I almost had a losing record on JV as a freshman. So, like, for me to even make it to the state tournament my senior year, let alone be a state finalist, was, like, crazy. And then to be a Division I heavyweight, like, that was even crazier, you know? So,
how much are you weighing now, and how much are you weighing back then?
So I'll tell you my weights right now. I remember them. I remember the heaviest I weighed my freshman year was 153. The heaviest I weighed my sophomore year was about 162. My junior year, in between my junior year and senior year is when I got big. My junior year I weighed 175 the day after state, or the day of state, sorry. My senior year I weighed 217 the day of state.
Oh, wow. You bulked up.
Yeah, so I hit the weight room hard.
What are you, 6'1"?
6'3".
6'3". Oh, yeah. I haven't seen you in so long.
Yeah, so I was about 6'1" then, and then I got to about 6'3" my senior year and put on a lot of size. I was doing CrossFit like 3 days a week and then lifting. And I look at it now and I'm like, dude, I was so motivated and had so much energy and no injuries. And it was easier to train back then. Like, like, now I have to like really assess because like it was just different back then, you know?
Yeah,
so
I know what you mean.
But yeah, so for me, it's always been like a switch that flipped. And when people, and for as far as I go, like, I'm okay having my feelings hurt if it leads to results. And I don't think a lot of people are okay with that. And I think that's a choice. And I think this is kind of the answer to the root of your question is, for me, if, I always ask my coaches reluctantly because I kind of don't want to know the answer if it doesn't go the way I want it to. But I'll say, am I working hard enough? What, especially this year, I was like, I want to go in MMA, and you got to work hard or you're going to get kicked in the head and, have brain damage. And I said, do I work hard enough to compete at that level? Like, what do I need to change as far as, because if I lose and it's just talent, I'm okay with that. But if I lose and somebody outworked me, that bothers the hell out of me. Like, I hate being outworked. Like, if somebody says that guy outworked you, dude, it will eat at me. If somebody says that guy's just better, okay, but he's better because he outworked you, that eats at my soul. Because I can control that.
Were you raised that way? Were you raised like your parents instilled that in you?
I mean, my dad's a really hard worker, and my mom works hard.
Like, where do you think that came from in terms of like what you were exposed to?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's nurture there. I wouldn't say like.
Say it's more of a genetic factor.
Maybe, or just decisions over time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, something would have led you like there. I guess I'm trying to see if there was like a progression to where you.
Yeah. Well, I think
because there's a build up to that moment,
sure.
and then you made that switch.
Yeah.
But there was always a build up. It didn't happen for no reason.
Yeah. Well, I think we have control over our decisions, and I think I just made a decision.
Oh yeah.
And I think whether or not somebody leads you to that. I mean, there's people that go completely opposite of where their parents led them, and some people go exactly the same path, and you see the rags to riches stories, like some kids grow up in a poor family and they become rich just because they saw what didn't work, or they didn't want. So it's really hard to say where that comes from. Obviously, my parents have an influence on that, but I just think there's something in me that I don't like losing, and I don't like being outworked, and I really I think that's just been small decisions over time that now, if you look at it, is really intense. But at the time, 5 years ago, I couldn't really articulate it as well. So, but yeah, as far as like, because I've never seen my dad, like he goes to the office, I don't see him work,
Yeah.
And, my mom's a stay-at-home mom, so it's not like I see that. Like, that's just the norm, It's not like I see the fruits there. So, and I didn't have, like, an older brother or anything like that. I have a younger brother that, had I not gotten tough, like, would have started beating me up. So maybe that helped. But what about you? Do you have siblings?
I have an older brother.
Yeah.
He's the opposite of me, polar opposite. But
Really?
It's good. It's good to have someone that, is blood that shares a completely different perspective than you, like he does. He's a rocket scientist.
Wow.
I know.
I thought you were smart.
No, he's on a whole nother level. Yeah. I don't know if like that rocket that launched up in the air and then landed on the pad. I don't know if you ever heard about that.
Where? In like just like at NASA?
Where like rocket launched up into space and then like the first stage came back and landed on a pad in the ocean. You didn't hear about that?
I've never heard about it.
Yeah, a lot of people haven't. Oh. But yeah, he was like on that. That's like what he does.
Wow.
It's just like,
does he work at
not
NASA?
Too many people do that. SpaceX.
Oh, even better. That's the next. That's going to take over for sure.
Yeah.
Elon's crazy, man. He's got the.
He is a.
There was out here in SoCal, like I think last year or maybe the year before, there was one of his SpaceX rockets like just kind of hovering, and people were like, it was at night too, so you couldn't tell what it was. And I was like, what the hell is that? Everybody's like freaking out, bro. And then it just like took off, I think, and everybody was like, and we were like looking it up. We're like, what was that? Like, and they said it was one of the SpaceX rockets. But
you wouldn't know any better. You think it's a UFO.
Dude, it was weird. I've seen some weird videos. There's some from my hometown in Missouri that people were posting like, did anybody else see this? And it was like a light just kind of hovering and then went. Pew. So I don't believe in aliens, but I mean,
there's some weird stuff out there.
There's some weird stuff. Have you heard about this thing in Oregon? It's like the it's like in the redwood forest or whatever. But like my buddy was telling me about it when we went to the coast last weekend. I guess like there's places where like you'll be lighter or shorter, like the polaric density. There's something. It's like almost like a glitch in the Matrix. He was telling me.
I feel like I have heard of that before.
I was like,
maybe like once. It rings a bell, but I don't know where that would be.
I can't remember. He never sent it to me. I'll have to look it up. I'll bring it up some other time. But yeah, it's weird. He was telling me like you'll literally like there's videos of people like having a ruler or something, and like it just curves in midair. Like it. I was like,
real?
What? I was like, Jackson, are you high right now? Like we've been.
That's crazy, man.
And I
feel like, why isn't that all over the place?
I was like, why is this not the biggest thing? And I was like, this must be like a starting of a black hole, like a early black hole or something. Because like that doesn't even. I'd have to look into it. I have
no idea what the science behind that is. Yeah, something with gravity, I'm assuming.
Something. Yeah. Have you seen the movie Interstellar?
Hell yeah.
It's a great movie.
Love that movie.
That was a good movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't really like the end, but it kind of ties into that. But yeah, it's weird. So, but yeah, man. Hey, dude, I appreciate you doing this, man.
Of course, man.
This is a fun one.
I appreciate you having me on.
This is a fun one. I think this is the most intelligent one we've had. So, it happens.
That's why I have different people on, different conversations.
Sure. Well, man, plug your stuff. How's your podcast going? Where can people find you? What's So you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at the same handle, Conor, like Conor McGregor, CONOR _Harris, HARRIS _ after that. My website is thepinnacleperformance.com. If you're interested in the things I have to talk about, I offer online training. If you're a strength coach or personal trainer, I don't know how many listen to this podcast, but if you are, I offer coaching consultations as well. And I just try to put out a lot of good information. Cool. And then I've listened to a couple of your podcasts, The Pinnacle Performance.
Yeah.
So you guys, if you're more interested in depth of what we talked about a little bit, you should definitely go check that out. It's just Pinnacle Performance, right? With Conor Harris?
The Pinnacle Performance podcast. I have a ton of really interesting and really smart guests on there. We talk about, we deep dive on some nerd stuff, and it's a good time.
It's good, man. I listened to it. It was very good. I was like, dang, man. Like, two of my buddies, I started listening to yours, and then another buddy, Josh, his podcast. And I was like, man, I've been doing this longer, and they're way better. I don't know what's going on.
You'll get there, man.
So,
how many episodes have you done?
This will be 24.
Yeah, it's not that much.
So
you're still figuring it out.
So, all right, brother. Well, I appreciate you, man. Hey, I'm super excited to get back up to Portland when the gym's open and start working with you.
Oh yeah.
So
I'm excited, man. That's gonna be a lot of fun.
How many fighters do you train? Do you train any fighters?
I've trained probably a couple dozen in the past.
Okay.
None right now.
Okay.
But,
all right. Well, hey, man, you got a world champ coming in. So.
Hell yeah, let's get after it, man.
All right, brother. I love you, man. Have a good one.
All right.
Hey,
you too, Christian.
Easter.
Appreciate you, man. What's that? Oh, you as well. Yeah.
Happy Easter, buddy.
See you later.
Alrighty, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed that podcast. I hope you got something out of it. I really don't see how you could listen to that and not get something out of it, whether it was comedic relief or just pure information in general. I enjoyed that podcast. I think definitely the most intelligent one, but I want to be doing some more like that. I want to be doing informative podcasts where people can come on and, ask them questions about what's going on and what they think and, people that are experienced. So if you know anybody that maybe fits that category, shoot me their info and I'll see if I can get in touch with them. But yeah, I enjoyed this podcast a lot. I appreciate you guys listening. Like I said before, make sure you share this podcast. If you enjoyed it, if you have not yet, guys, you can get 15% off Activewear. Activewear is a great sport brand company, clothing brand. They have amazingly comfortable clothing, shirts, shorts, you name it, they got it. A lot like a Lululemon, but just a little bit newer. So they're a big up-and-coming company. You get 15% off there. Clicking the link in the bio. And also, if you use the promo code Barbell Robertson with a capital B, you can get 15% off. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. I hope you guys had an amazing Easter. I hope you guys are staying safe, staying home, staying healthy, staying in prayer, staying in your word. But guys, I think we're done here.